American and Iranian officials are expected to meet later this week in Doha as the technical teams from both countries discuss ways to implement their fragile peace agreement. A week and a half ago, Iran and the United States signed a memorandum of understanding, giving themselves 60 days to hash out a durable peace deal on complex issues, including the Strait of Hormuz and Iran's nuclear program. Over the weekend, though, that ceasefire was seriously tested by tit-for-tat strikes, the US hitting sites inside of Iran, while Tehran fired at American allies in the Gulf. Well, one of the countries acting as something of a mediator in this crisis is Oman. The Strait of Hormuz sits in the territorial waters of both Iran and Oman. And today, the French President Emmanuel Macron is hosting the Sultan of Oman, Haitham bin Tariq, for talks here in Paris. To talk to me then a little bit about this, James Andre from our foreign desk with me in the studio. And James, we'll talk in a moment then about the visit by the Sultan of Oman. But first of all, let's talk about Oman itself, just because by virtue of its geography, it is playing a key role in trying to navigate out of this crisis.
Well, absolutely. Natalie, actually, the tit-for-tat strikes that you were just talking about, well, are directly linked to this position of Oman. Now, I think I have a map, because with a map it is much clearer. In fact, what we have is two main routes across the Strait of Hormuz. As you can see on this map, you have this northern route, which is called here the Iran route, simply because it is in Iranian waters, because it is close to the coast, and because basically this is the route that Iran wants ships to use because it is under its complete control. If you go to this southern route, well, this one is actually in the international waters, in the waters of the Sultanate of Oman. And just recently, Friday, basically they set up this route, opening it, explaining that indeed they were allowing ships to pass by this route under supervision of the UN as part of a kind of agreement that was brokered between the UN and the Sultanate of Oman on humanitarian grounds to release the ships that were stuck in the Gulf. Well, what happened after that is that indeed Iran said, wow, Iran did not say they striked, but in any case, there was a strike on one of these ships, and that, of course, meant that this route is now closed again. In any case, Oman has not been very clear about what it wants to do in this current situation, simply because at one stage, Iran and Oman, and they met just yesterday or recently to discuss the possibility of creating a committee in order to charge not a toll but service charges to go across the Sultanate, so to go across the Strait of Hormuz. And that, of course, is something that the Americans do not want to see. And you can probably remember a month ago to the day, indeed, Donald Trump threatened to blow Oman up, I quote, if they do not accept this concept that this navigation should be free for all with no charge. So this is very much something that is being negotiated right now. The Iranians have put in that memorandum of understanding that they give themselves 60 days to negotiate, and 60 days where this passage will be free only. This is what it says. So they clearly think about a service charge, and Oman could very well jump on that boat. And this is one of the big issues right now when it comes to trying to stabilize the situation in the area. Once again, 20% of the world oil passes by the Strait of Hormuz.
Yeah, and I imagine then this is really the top issue that President Macron of France is talking about today when he sits down in private with the Sultan of Oman.
Absolutely. It's right at the top of the agenda, with Emmanuel Macron saying that what he wants to see is free and unconditional sailing across the Strait of Hormuz. So this is something that he's going to very clearly hammer and discuss with Haitham bin Tariq. He's also going to put another thing on the table, which is a force, a coalition by Europeans, including the British and the French, that was devised at the G7 in order to create a force that would monitor this Strait of Hormuz and also help demine. Now, this is something that Emmanuel Macron's already said in the G7 that would only happen if the Iranians and the Americans were on board. But in any case, it is something that he's going to put on the table today as well. Now, they are meeting right now. They should be speaking later on in the afternoon at the Peninsula Hotel as part of an economic forum. And also, well, there are other things that are being talked about, and that is signing contracts, including one by Suez, the French company, that is signing one of its most important deals of its entire history. That's 2 billion euros to take care of water distribution and purification in the Sultanate of Oman. And also there are also deals with regard to EDF, electricity production and arms.